Welcome to the Copilot for Microsoft 365 Tech Accelerator. We're thrilled that you're here, and we have a host of great content for you. My name is Mary David Pasch, and I'm on the engineering team building the Copilot for Microsoft 365 platform. Our team's building the orchestration engine that powers all the Copilot experiences. And I'm really excited for you to hear from some of my colleagues, product leaders from across the company, and experts on how we've built Copilot, how Copilot works, how you can get ready for Copilot, and some of our best practices for making sure that your organization can adopt Copilot and really get the most impact out of Copilot. And here today, I'm excited to be joined by Bobby Kishore, Vice President of Office AI. We're going to chat a bit about Copilot today. And Bobby, this last year and a half has been really an incredible year to be at Microsoft. So I'm curious to hear from you, what has your personal journey been at Microsoft, and what has the last year been like building Copilot?
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for the opportunity to connect and converse. I think last year has been like no other year before. I've been in the company more than 25 years, and this is one of the most exciting times to be around, where with the power of generative AI, we are in the early days of rewiring productivity all up. So our journey, if you look back, we have been as Microsoft looking at AI for quite some time. If you see in the Office products, Designer, which is in PowerPoint, to take the complexity of creating sizzling and very attractive slides, that is something that Designer does for you. In Word, you had Editor, which helps you write better paragraphs, in addition to, of course, the spell check and grammar check. In Excel, we have had Excel Insights. On the search side, as we all know, search relevance, obviously exists in the web, but also search in the enterprise, desktop search. So those all are anchored in AI. And then Cortana, which was a Microsoft product, also tackled the natural language understanding. So some of the things that you see today, where LLMs or large language models understand what the user intent is, we have been in that area as well. The big shift that happened, Mary, in the last, I would say, 18 months was much more ubiquitous availability of compute with cloud computing. Data, that's the second big piece, that we have had access to training data as an industry overall. And the last thing has really been the models, the transformers and AI models, that truly, when you start the confluence of all those three things, massive compute, massive data, and a new generation of algorithms, you put it all together, magic just happens, and that's this moment.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, being at Microsoft, just seeing the journey. I like to tell customers, remind them, the tech is really new, but we've been working in the productivity space. We've been working on building this platform for decades. How do you feel like what we're doing, we're building on what we've done? You talked a little bit about just some of the features that, the journey that we already started with AI. But how are we kind of redefining productivity with Copilot for Microsoft 365?
Yeah, great question. I think if we think about the type of jobs that as knowledge workers, information workers we do, I think each one of us would say there are aspects of our job when we work with applications or computers that we like, and then some of them frustrate us, some of them are drudgery and tedious. So part of the the opportunity with this new technology is to take, at least the way I look at things, is that take the tedium out and teach me new things. Those are the two sides that how I approach this era of generative AI. And so whether or not, if I'm, for example, I will use the example of says a designer. So designer takes the tedium away of resizing, various images, etc., etc. The like really creating gorgeous slides. That is something that the designer does for you. For some people, it is the blank page that people in a Word document that people don't, that people feel nervous about, and so helping people start drafting and drafting, like interacting and asking them, what is this about? Let's get you started. Those are, I believe, very useful scenarios. So if you zoom out, I would say one is on the creation side. So whether it is the creation of a Word document, whether it is the creation of an email, a PowerPoint, etc., etc., how can AI help? And then the other side of the coin is, how can AI help you comprehend things better? So this is where summary, Q&A, those sort of things start helping the customers and users in a really good way.
Oh yeah, that the blank page really resonates with me. I've been using Copilot for Microsoft 365, and I just can't imagine now if I didn't have it. It just becomes such a habit for me.
Yes.
I think probably my favorite feature, and I hear a lot from customers, is within Teams, just being able to have
Yes.
sort of that assistant that you bring along with you everywhere,
Yes.
and you don't have to furiously
Yes.
try to take notes and present. It just does that for you. You
Yeah.
can go back and ask questions, like even say like, what did I say? What did we decide? What are the action items? And I don't even write, I don't even write the follow-up emails anymore.
Yep.
I can just have Copilot do it for me. It's just such a huge time saver. And I love that really it's, it's not about replacing, me as the human, but really just like
Yep.
empowering me to just achieve so much more. I just feel like I have a whole team working behind me. It's
Yep.
really helps me scale. And I think, I've talked to a lot of customers who say very similar things about it. I think it's something like, 77% of our earliest customers are saying very similarly, like they just can't imagine now that they
Yep.
have Copilot having that, not having that.
Yep.
So I'm curious to hear, what are some of the other things that you've heard from customers and some of our earliest customers who are using, who've been using Copilot for Microsoft 365?
Yeah. You already touched on some of the places where you are finding Copilot useful, and so our customers have very similar stories. The thing, as you pointed out, the Teams example is a great one. That if I missed a Teams meeting, I can go look at the transcripts, I can query the transcripts, I can get a summary and key points and what the actions were. That is a huge, huge time saver. The same thing with Outlook, that if I want to reply to an Outlook email, I get some assistance. But equally, that if there is a long thread of emails, to be able to summarize and get the essence out as to what's along with suggested replies, those again become a great use cases. One of the things that I hear customers talk about, and again, because we are infusing this AI technology in our mainstay apps, as well as building some new apps, you're finding that we are trying to meet users where they are, rather than saying go to some other place to take advantage of this AI. So I think that it is worth underscoring that particular point. Now when you look at, say, I'll pick Word. So you talked about the blank page. For me, it is the thing that I love most in the creation side of Word is, uh, I'm if what I have written is verbose, I could say, shorten it. I could say rephrase this particular line or rephrase this particular paragraph, and I get 5 or 6 options of of that could be, and I can just scroll through that and say, I love this. I love this, the way this has been expressed. And yes, given enough time, I might have probably done that, but it is so fantastic to be able to just say yes and then do the final minute edits to really make it my own. So that is, I think, on the creation side. And then I think on the consumption side, imagine a long document and being able to just summarize it. And similar to how you mentioned querying a Teams meetings transcript, you could actually ask questions of the document or the PowerPoint. One of the things that customers just love is taking a document. Let's say it is a 30-page document. In fact, just yesterday, even a colleague of ours was saying, and it was serendipitous that another customer related that same story, is that I have a long document that I've written. It has taken a lot of time of collaboration, etc., etc. Now I want to communicate it in a large forum. So I want to take the document and convert it into a PowerPoint. And so that ability to take document to PowerPoint is would have taken somebody hours, and that we are able to do in just a few in a couple of minutes. So huge time savings is something that customers are really gravitating towards.
Yeah, that it totally makes sense. I think one of the things that you talked a lot about, a lot of different scenarios, and we've seen a lot of success for our customers. One of the things that I see some people worry about is how to really shift the culture in their organization. We have some sessions later on talking about how do you get your organization ready for Copilot, and some of it too is we have a specific session on how do you craft a great prompt. What can you do with the power of large language models now that you connect it to all of your graph data in all of your apps? I mean, it's just so incredible. But what can you do with that? So there's a great session on that later. Do you have any tips for things? You mentioned a couple things for how organizations can really have that AI culture shift. I know, here at Microsoft, even we've had that.
Yeah.
I've really felt that.
So you touched on today I would say prompt writing is a skill. You can go on a lot of blogs as well as social media, and you can see people sharing their long prompts that truly you can do magical things if only you knew how to write those long prompts. My personal take is that we are in the infancy, and today, yes, people have to write those long prompts, but I do believe I'm a tech optimist that I think in short order that we may be in December of this year and it will be a different world in the prompt space, where I don't think that people would have to learn necessarily how to write prompts, that you would have suggestions, just similar to how you start writing the quick brown fox, and you can start seeing some things grayed out that jumps over the lazy dog. So similarly, prompt filling along with which are the variables inside of the prompt that you can change, I do believe that is imminent. But in the here and now, I do believe what I would recommend is that we have Copilot Labs, which is a rich and evolving set of starter prompts in M365 chat. What I love is that it is not just a search bar today, but it essentially gives me about 6 common tasks that information workers would do to catch up to find out about something. So I think urging, or prompting, using those prompts is what I'm saying, that using some of those prompts to get your feet wet, I believe is one dimension. That go try. What's the worst that will happen? It's going to come up with some we may have some errors, but go try. That is, I think one aspect. The other thing that I would say is high value commands. You talked about the Teams one. That is something that go into in a team session, read the summary, query the transcript, so that you start developing some new design patterns about how you are able to create and consume the content that is being created. So I would say that is another place that it is a very fertile ground, just a team's meeting to go develop some new muscle there. Then I would go on high value commands, such as we talked about the doc to PPT. Open up a Word document, ask some questions, get some summary, do the same with PowerPoint, play with Outlook. So I believe those are definitely areas. And one of the things I believe the audience is going to learn and hear is how to plan for the rollout in enterprises, how to select the early team, what are the early scenarios that one can go after. And at the top level point for me would be identify which set of things are today time consuming and are uh, tedium, that there's tedium associated with it, and then map those to the Copilot capabilities that we have across the entire suite, and see which ones of those resonate the most with you, which you use on a daily basis, and 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 uh, and give it a try.
Yeah, I love what you said there about thinking about what in your day is tedious for you. What do you not want to do? What could you use help with? That's such an important point. So yeah, I mentioned this before, but I encourage everyone. There are a bunch of great sessions. One of them talks about best practices, in particular with prompting. So you'll be able to actually get the most out of Copilot by understanding the different really what you can do with Copilot. And part of that too, sharing your learnings about like what you're doing. I just encourage people to just like jump in and try it. I've loved just sitting down with customers and seeing how they use it, asking them, when I talk about here's have you tried this? Here's a way to think about crafting prompts, just to see that light bulb go off of like, wow, there is so much that I can do with Copilot. And I think part of the when we talk about adoption and the culture shift within your organization, there's another great session also on how you can really drive adoption. One of the things that I know my team has really seen is the organizations where they have people work together using Copilot, sharing what they're using it for, just really drives so much more engagement and adoption, because people get excited about it, and it is quite a shift. So it's just really exciting to see. You talked a lot about what Copilot can do, all the delightful things. I've had a chance to talk with customers about all those pieces, but I also kind of in the next question that really gets asked is all around security. That's just top of mind for users. AI is just so it's new. It's can be overwhelming in terms of how different it feels. And so I just wanted to touch a little bit about just some of the things, the concerns that I'm hearing, and how I'd love for people, on this call and who are watching this video to think about it. We mentioned before that, this journey for Microsoft, even though the product is relatively new, the underlying platform is something we've been evolving for decades. And so things like everything we've built for security, how we think about building responsible AI, it's all guided by a very rich, robust responsible AI framework. We
Mhm.
have proactively identifying issues. What are your thoughts for? Can you tell us a little bit about, when customers come to you and they ask these questions? How do you keep my data secure?
Mm.
What do you tell them?
This is, I think, one of the most important pieces that we have to continually communicate and share with our customers, because the technology is new, and for some it it feels almost magical. And so while there is excitement, we have to also be empathetic and understand the underlying concerns that people have. As you mentioned, Mary, that in some ways it is I was there in the ground floor of Microsoft's move to the cloud, and where our customers were had their own server farms, their own data centers, and the early adopters. The question really was that, how do I know that the data that is going to be hosted at Microsoft is going to be secure? Is Microsoft going to look at the data? And and I believe we have earned that promise, and we have kept that promise. We have earned the trust and kept that promise that we do not look at the customer's data. We charge customers for the software that we provide. So the customer is not the product. We don't sell the customer's data. So the foundations of privacy, trust, compliance, various certifications that we have had, for governments, for regulated industries, Department of Defenses worldwide. So that is the strong foundation on top of which, including data sovereignty, Mary, that you and I have also talked in the past. And so all those things are the underpinning of this cloud infrastructure that we have had for now more than a decade. And it is really building on those principles. Our principles have not shifted even by a nano centimeter, right? I mean, or nanomillimeter, right? So it is so that is top of mind for all of us, that we don't look at the customer's data. None of the data is used to train the OpenAI or
Mhm.
even some of our own tuning. It is we deeply respect the customer's data, and so the security, privacy, RAI, as you said. On the RAI, there's one comment that I would make on the RAI side, is that we hear from both sides on the RAI spectrum, if you would. One is that we are over blocking, because we are trying to be, in some ways, uh, cautious. So sometimes you will see that I have this data. Why is this? I can see it. Why is Copilot not seeing it? So those are some of our growing pains on one side, and in most cases we are choosing to err on the side of caution to begin with. But then we will have also some incidents, just as Google had. We also had some incidents where RAI will not catch some of the things, and objectionable content does get surfaced, and we feel terrible when that happens. So so that, to me, is that journey on the, as you touched on, the RAI side. And the other thing is that we are working on is, how do we like, for example, if a file is encrypted today, we are in the process of building, but it is that if you have the rights to that file as a user, we should be able to take the data from it and answer questions for you. Today you will see some errors that happen, where, because of that extra caution, that we if we see an encrypted file, we don't support today, and it's coming, like a Q&A or a summary for that. So that, I think, the privacy, security, RAI, those are the themes that from customers, that every single customer engagement, the question that you asked is asked. And I think we have to continually share how we are also doing the work.
Yeah, that totally resonates. And we have some sessions later on in this Tech Accelerator. I think the audience is probably hearing a lot of the concepts that you're describing and wondering, like, how do I prepare for that? This is an area that we're going to invest in, but you can learn today when you learn about how Copilot works, and then what you can do to get prepared for Copilot. I think it sort of demystifies what it is, and I think users will really see, our customers will really see that the investments that you've already made for keeping your data secure, for making sure that you maintain like the highest standards for privacy and compliance. That's all baked into Copilot with the platform that it's built on top of, and that orchestration. It's not like we just send things into the LLM. We have a very complex, comprehensive orchestration engine that really validates your responses, checks where the sources are coming from, and gives that transparency. So really recommend some of the deep dives here that you're going to see over the next 2 days. It's such a great set of content. Bobby, thank you so much. Any final thoughts about just where, how people can get started? Like what would you recommend for them in terms of jumping in here?
Yeah, I would say that it's a new era, and one of the terms that I use internally is while the power of these LLMs is massive, at least from our side, what we are trying to do is we are trying to be circumspect about how we use this power without breaking the customer's trust, and really in service of the customer, to remove the tedium and drudgery from their jobs, and directionally to help people, which is very aligned with our mission: do more and be more. And so for me, the easiest way is to start swimming. And so it is that go try whatever your favorite app is, see if it has a Copilot, take it for a drive, and see what you like, what you don't like. And we are the final thing I would say is that we are the start of this journey. And so together, working with our customers, with our partners, we are going to create something massively magical. And what a great time to be working on this. And we'll do it responsibly. And so that, to me, is our commitment.
Great. Yeah. Great parting words. Thank you, Bobby. It's always a pleasure. And for the audience here, thank you for being here. We're so excited to be part of your AI journey, and we hope that you get a lot out of this Tech Accelerator.
Have a great set of sessions.